Good evening, everyone. This is the 9th South-South Forum on Sustainability, the 25th panel of the forum. And our topic for tonight is Love Home Project, Collective Production of Village Songs. And I'm the host tonight. My name is Cuihuan. I'm from Green Ground Ecotech Center. And tonight our panelist is Mr. Sun Heng. He founded the Village Songs Project, which is part of a series of nationwide programs under the Loving Home Village Project. Since the project's inception in 2012, Loving Home Project has gained wide social impact by conducting programs such as Discovering a Beautiful Home, Songs of Home, and more. In 2008, Loving Home Village Project moved from focusing on finding cultural roots during the first phase to focusing on rural, cultural, and creative industry in the second phase. Mr. Sun Heng, he started the Village Songs Project, Loving Home Center, Artist in Residence Program, and Loving Home Talent Program. Mr. Sun Heng, as the founder of this project, he used to be a music teacher in 1998, and then he became a traveling artist, carrying his guitar with him across China and singing for the ordinary workers living at the bottom of the society. He once headed public service programs and social enterprises, including New Worker Music Troupe, Worker Culture Art Museum, Worker New Year Gala, folk song collections, and mutual aid projects. In 2018 and across the last 3 years, Mr. Sun has written songs for 28 villages across China. There's one piece widely enjoyed by the public called Song of Loving Home. It came into fruition in December 2019 and was the fruits of more than 20 artists and colleagues over 5 days. It is our great honor to invite Mr. Sun Heng to be our panel speaker and share his Village Songs project with us. In order to give us a fuller picture, Mr. Sun has also invited 7 participants of the Village Songs Project as guest speakers to engage us in a lively dialogue. So now let's please welcome Mr. Sun to the podium. Thank you, Ms. Cui. Hello, everybody. Good evening. First of all, thank you so much to the organizers of the 9th South Forum to give me this platform to share our Village Song Project. Just now, as our host introduced, that our Village Song Project is part of a series of Loving Home Project. And Loving Home Village Project is a social enterprise that we founded. And Village Song Project is only a part of our greater project, and it was founded in 2018. And since 2018, we've gone to numerous different villages to perform and write songs for the villages. We've gone to villages including Nantang Village in Fuyang City and Anhui Province, Haotang Village, Xinyang, Henan Province, Dongshen Village, Beibei, Chongqing Province, Hula Village in Chuxiong, Yunnan Province. We've completed 29 village songs with the villagers in 29 different villages with our team and the villagers. And it is my great honor tonight to share my experiences and methodology, as well as my thoughts in this process of developing village songs with the villagers. And I'll mainly share my experiences with us from three angles. And first is why we started the program. And second is how do we approach this collective production of village songs. And the third part is how we apply and the effect of using village songs. And after my presentation, it'll be my greatest honor to present to you 7 guest speakers who I've worked with in the past few years in this Village Song project. First of all, the first part of my talk is going to be why we decided to start the program of Village Song Project. And the first reason is an external motivation, is that I felt the need from our era of rural revitalization, that there is a need for these village songs, because it is a national strategy of rural revitalization. And secondly, on the other hand, from my personal side of things, my internal motivation why I started this project is that I used to be a middle school music teacher. I love music. I love singing. In the last 20 years of my life, after I quitted my music teaching job, I've worked in Beijing as a migrant worker, and I've also volunteered at schools for migrant children. And I've also started social welfare organizations that focus on writing songs for migrant workers. And gradually, my work focus has also transitioned towards focusing more on the countryside. And my dream is not to write songs and sing just for myself, but my dream is to give everyone a chance to sing, because I discovered that most of the workers who live at the bottom rung of our society are usually the silent ones in our conventional culture. It is rare for us to hear their voices in our conventional culture. But singing itself is a way to express our meanings, to express our feelings, our thoughts about the society. So I hope that everyone will have a chance to express themselves through music, through their singing, through their lyrics, to express their thoughts and their opinions. And in 2017, I had a band, and my band toured various villages across China, and we performed various folk songs. And on this journey, there were a few especially memorable moments. Once we passed by one village. It was a nice scenery village, and they had a beautiful stage. However, even though the stage had been built, had been there for a few years, but no one had ever performed there. And we were the first performer to stand on that stage. And that evening, we only had one audience member, a little girl, because most people from that village had left to find better job opportunities, and most people who are left behind were the elderly. And that night, we had only one audience member, who was this 5-year-old little girl, and we were standing on the stage. And in the beginning, I was quite nervous and sad, because why do we only have one audience member? But that little girl, she stood below the stage, and she was so focused and excited for our performance. And all of a sudden, I felt as if the whole world was ours. I felt like she was the most important audience member in all of my experiences of performing. And so that evening, we put on the entire performance, a complete one, for just that, our young audience member. And the second memorable incident that I remember was also in the village. We were able to invite for that performance a 70-year-old grandfather who used to love to play the erhu, the Chinese violin. However, he hadn't played that instrument for 40 years. And because he had to work for his living, and there was another old lady in her 60s. She used to be a lover of singing, and she also hadn't had a chance to sing for many, many years. So I invited both of them to come to our performance. And we had a chance to hear the erhu play in the village after 40 years, and accompanying with the beautiful voice by Miss Yang, the old lady who sang to us a very well-known song to us from the 80s, a really nostalgic song that's called The Pink Memories. And then I just saw that on both of their cheeks, there were smiles, and that there was this blink of light in their eyes, and I was deeply moved by that. And the third incident that I could remember was also in the village. It's where one of our panelists is going to speak about. It was a small village in the mountains, and there was a small school in the village, and it could hold only 300 students. And most of the young people had left for work, and we had children and the elderly left only. And first we were worried whether there were going to be any audience members. And to our surprise, we found so many people coming from all directions. And in fact, there were about 1,500 people who turned out that evening. And these moments were the most memorable to me. As opposed to the city, our villages in China had undergone while our cities had undergone drastic urbanization, our villages have lagged behind. Our villages haven't enjoyed such diversity of cultural activities. And in fact, our rapid urbanization in China had happened at the cost of our villages' vitality. And so these experiences have also prompted me to think about, why do we have to talk about rural revitalization now? Well, we have gone beyond and past the era of alleviating poverty. Our country has invested a huge amount of money into our basic infrastructure. And now we have security with water, electricity, road transportation. Our basic needs have been taken care of. However, on the other side, in our villages, we are facing another problem. We are facing a spiritual and cultural lack because young people have left the village for work. Villages are lacking public cultural activities, lacking young people and liveliness. Many villages also have seen problems with internal disputes and the lack of unity. Well, how do we go about rural revitalization? There are 5 goals of the rural revitalization policy: industry revitalization, talent revitalization, and including cultural revitalization. And for me, just like a country has its national anthem, when the national anthem raises, we can feel the country's sense of cohesiveness. If a country can have its national anthem, then a village should also have its village song, because singing village songs can bind people together. And therefore, I started thinking about whether I can do something to change it, whether I can start a village song project. Because I believe it's only when we can bind people together, then we can have unity. Then can we have the basis for collective development in the village. And so in the second part of my presentation, I'm going to talk about how do we go about the collective production of village songs. Well, I think goal determines methodology. For us, our goal is to create a village song. A village song belongs to the villager. It is what the villagers most want to express and share with the world. It is their passion for the world. It is their most important culture, history, their feelings for their life. And it's that heightened expression. And therefore, we believe the main acting body in a village song production process has to be the villagers. And so we adopted a participatory methodology when we work with villagers. And so the concept of village song had been in place as early as 10 years ago, originating out of Zhejiang province. And however, based on our research, most of the methodology from the past take on a characteristic that is people often, it's individualistic. People often hire external artists, musicians to come to a village and write a song for the village. And oftentimes in these cases, villagers would feel isolated and they would say, well, this is not what I want to express. This is what you want to express, you, the musician, want to express. So for us, it was important for us to make sure that the villagers would love the song that we create together. So the method that we use is making sure the villagers are the main acting body. And then we invite the villagers to participate into this process of producing a village song. And this is our method. And usually, in order to produce one village song, it involves 3 steps. The first step, our production team often would conduct a field trip. We would stay in the village for 3 to 4 days. And who would we visit? We would often visit people and organizations, as well as natural sites and cultural sites that can give us information on the unique features of that particular place or village. We would visit the village cadre, villager representatives, retired teachers, doctors, entrepreneurs, and young people who had come back to start their own businesses, and volunteers. After this research that we conduct on these field trips, in the second step, this process, we would usually put on a 3-day workshop where we invite 20 to 30 villager representatives from the village to join us and work on the song together. In the second step, on the 3rd day, if it goes well, usually on the 3rd day, the lyrics for the song would come out. And the 3rd step of our process involves more professional participation, where we would bring the song to Beijing to our professional production team, and it goes under composition and recording production. And that process takes usually 60 days. And these are the 3 steps of our process. And here I want to take a bit more time to focus on the 3-day workshop that we put on and what we usually do on those 3 days, respectively. Usually on the first day, our focus is on our life stories, individual life stories. And why do we focus on telling the villagers individual life stories? Because we believe the village songs belong to the villagers. What kind of village songs can move people's hearts? It has to be songs that have temperature, that have warmth, that have traces of the villagers' life. Therefore, on the first day, we would invite the villagers to come and tell their life stories to us. And in this process, the villagers will have a chance to retrace their life trajectory. And this process, in fact, is also allowing them to discover again the value of their own lives and the process that they have undergone and to realize their self-dignity. And in this process, we would usually break up the villagers into small groups, dividing them up by gender. And we usually divide them up by gender because we've discovered that men and women usually would focus on different aspects when we ask them to tell their life stories. And the second day of our workshop, we usually ask the villagers to talk about the major events, the cultural history of the village. And the second day, we focus on the collective memory because the village song is not any single individual story. We believe a village also has its own life, has its own life story. And we often would focus on interviewing the elderly because they've witnessed more of the village's history. But in this process, the point is to engage all the villagers to retrace their collective memory, to rediscover the important points in their village's history. It is also a process of re-establishing their knowledge of their own past. So again, we've noticed that men's perspectives and women's perspectives usually are completely different. Men usually would remember or focus on the major events. For example, when did they build their reservoir? When did such and such factory came into place? When did the road came about? On the other side, in comparison, the women would usually remember in what year they got married, in what year they gave birth to their children, in what year their children went to college. They're often more concerned about their daily life, about their family members, and about their internal feelings and emotions. And therefore, in our process, we try to see and take care of everybody's needs. We would take into account our children and our women and our elderly's needs and what they want to express. And when we talk about the memorabilia of the history of the village, we would often encourage the people to establish a common ground. We would ask them to think about what are the common memories they have, what are the major events that happened that everybody could remember. For example, when during the late 60s, during the Great Leap Forward, what kind of projects took place? For example, irrigation, the construction of irrigation canals or reservoirs, such events, most people would remember because they all had participated in them in some way. And whenever we talk about such projects, our elderly participants will have a lot to tell us. And the younger generations members who participate in this process would also be very moved when hearing these stories from the elderly. And so these projects can help us to build a sense of self-confidence and a sense of belonging among the villagers. On the third day of our workshop is when we compose the melody and also compose the lyrics. And so the most important part of the song is our lyrics. And our melody is often implicated in the lyrics. Writing a village song is similar to building a house. Before we can build the house, we have to spend a lot of time in gathering the building materials, such as the cement, the windows, the rocks, the bricks. So first, in writing a village song, we first have to gather ingredients for the lyrics. And where do these ingredients come from? These ingredients come from our research field trips, where we, the artists and the facilitators, also participate in these villagers' stories, and we gather information from them. And also from the second day, where we hear the major events of the village's history. And so in these processes, we gather hundreds of words that we can use and then incorporate into our lyrics. And so on the third day of our workshop, we would extrapolate these keywords from our research, and then we find ways to put them together. And some of our participants are illiterate, but we would still engage them in the process. We would ask them orally for their input. And after these 3 days,
so that the way that it comes out with the lyric is that we also borrowed from the folk music from the locals, especially in the southwestern part of China. There are a lot of very good like folk songs, folk operas, and they are very characteristic. And these folk songs, they are kind of like accumulated over thousands of years of history and cultures. So that in such way, the lyric could be borrowed from all these cultural traditions. But there's slightly a conflict here between the elderly generation and the younger generation. As the elderlies, they love to that kind of songs that has a history. But the younger generation, they love like pop music and songs that have their the characters of their own generations. So it's a process of discussion and compromise, and yeah. So of course they are not. We can't do 100% everyone enjoy the songs, but sometimes for those part that we cannot make consensus, we will just let them aside. So it's always a process of working together with each other and learning from each other and listening in dialogue. And sometimes we will ask for suggestions to the villagers. Do you want the song to be in a fast pace, or do you want it to be in a, like more like a pop song or more like a folk song? Whether you would like to be like a modern songs or traditional classics. Yeah, so we ask for suggestions and then we will collect all these ideas and suggestions. And sometimes these songs would be in 2 paragraphs. The first one would be more like to relate the stories of the village and the histories. And the second part would be more like an innovative version. So that is the way we combine this inheritance and innovation, so that we would concern or consider different needs and different preference. And normally this kind of song not being quite long and nonsense, so that we can consider for the elderly that they cannot memorize such a long lyric, but also it won't be too thought, so that the younger generation would love it. Yeah, it's also a way that makes songs that are easy to remember, easy to sing, and they are more like those catchy songs that people love to sing and love to share. Yeah, for example, in Inner Mongolia, northern part of China, in a Wulan Jilin village, even though it's in Inner Mongolia area, but people there they speak they speak a dialect from Shanxi province, slightly to the south of Inner Mongolia. But you can tell because in this area, people migrated to Inner Mongolia a few decades back. So the culture there is kind of a mix between Inner Mongolia and Shanxi province. Yeah, I would like to sing few lines. So songs from Inner Mongolia.
大家感觉怎么样？它前边那个就是陕北的。How
do you feel with this song? Could you tell the difference between the first part and the second part? So the first part is more like borrowed from traditional Shanbei cultures or characters. But the second part is more with this Inner Mongolia style. So I want to make like a metaphor here. It is kind of like you are entering into traditional houses. The houses itself is tradition, but when we do the renovation, we can introduce some new styles or new elements. And the second song I would like to show you is from a village called Yuchi. And in this village, there are a lot of masons. Of 3 or 4 decades ago, there are a lot of masons, people who work with rocks. And I asked a lot of elderlies there. There's such a kind of like a song that used to sung by masons, and only a few people could still remember. Because I was able to find one mason, and one day, it's a rainy day, this person, he found another man. They brought a lot of those tools, and we all went to a place where we used to be able to find rocks. It's only under that working condition that they can sing such songs. So in this village, the village song we composed borrowed from Mason's tradition or from their like song styles. And in another village called Wenfeng, is another song that is for workers, or when you work, you sing this kind of songs. So we also introduced these work songs into the village songs in that village. So the third part of this presentation, I would like to share the application of village songs and its effects and how it influences what can it do for the villagers, for the family, and also for the village or for the society. So I would like to kind of give a broad analysis. Who are those beneficiaries of this village song? So the first of all, I would say is individuals, as like people, and the more they participate, they learn more and they benefit more. There's a Chinese old saying that food nourish our body and songs nourish our heart. Our heart, our spirit, our mind can be nourished by songs. So, and by singing makes people happy, and as they share lots of the life stories with us, they burst into tears, and but after they sing, they feel much better. So, and the second beneficial is the families. So you can imagine if in the morning, after you wake up, you can hear your parents are singing and songs are felt in your house. It brings you happiness rather than after you wake up, what you can hear is just the arguments or the discussions or those heaty talks between your parents. Yeah, you know which one you like. And the third aspect is the village. It's good for like community governance and also the village atmosphere. And it's also a way to communicate or to spread out the brand of this village, because we have shifted from a newspaper publisher to more like electronic sharings, like online or those like TikToks and all these ways. And with village songs, we can make it into a music, so that they could make like videos. And whenever they need to sell their products, their crops, they can embed the village song into their videos. So that is also a way to help the village to spread out their products. And then there's another way, there's another aspect of this, is that it would connect people's heart and mind. And there was one village chief. I asked him, what's your expectation of village songs? And he told me that he hopes the village song could the village song could move everyone into tears. And I was like wondering, why do you want people to be touched to tears? And he told me that actually there's a lot of elite or officials and enterprise owners, but because people are too like capable here, there are a lot of conflict between these like people who are very like capable. And because of this, it's difficult to have local enterprise, because everyone just those people who have this capacity just left the village. So this village chief, he hopes that people would be bonded again, have this solidarity. So I'm gonna sing this song for you all.
飞翔在蓝天，是窑洞千金湾，古今古道古营盘，忘不了甘甜的 深井水，忘不了校园师生郎，忘不了母亲的呼唤，美丽照烧我的家乡。啊，怎么样？大家觉得是不是很
How do you like it?
那这首村歌创作完之后呢，真的
And after this very song, we really touch a lot of entrepreneurs. And one of them, name his high-rise buildings after the name of the village. But sadly, he got sick, and he made a wish that if I can recover, I would try my best to return to give back to my village. And fortunately, he was recovered, and he went back to the village, and he spread out this village song to his family and to his own company. And now he's one of the entrepreneurs that set up enterprise in his own village. So this is just an example of how village song could revitalize or help people to regain the ownership or its belongings, the sense of belongings. So I would like to also make a example, or share a story of how a village song could help this branding, this spreading out brand of the village in southwest of China in Yunnan. It's a very touristic village. And after we produce these songs, these village songs, do you know overnight how many people have heard this song? It got a hit, 100,000 click. It's not a commercial running of this song, but it's just people, they share by their mouths or they just tweak. I also want to sing for you all.
杭土坊，千年外铺拉，芒果木棉花，红为黑山羊，红唇米酒夜把子，两岸稻花香。阿弥陀歌吉啦，直白多歌吉啦，山长青水长流，相聚外铺拉。阿弥陀歌吉啦。直白多歌吉啦，山长青水长流，相聚外铺拉。山长青水长流，相聚外铺拉。这首歌呢，也是借鉴。
It borrows local tunes, and now men and women and even tourists, they could understand or they could sing this song. So it's whoever sings this song is a way to share life and traditions of this village. And there's another village in Hebei. Its main crops is chestnuts. It's a very good product, but they cannot sell them. So by producing their own village song, they now have their own brandings, and also they sell the chestnuts online, and it's just has a very good effect. And another effect of the village songs is that it can help the village to promote their tourist resources. And nowadays, when tourists visit such village, they can pick up these songs easily, as the songs has become like one of the tourist elements of the village, has become a very important element. And I would say the best way to inherit this kind of cultured songs by people who send them. We don't want the songs to be just a story to be stored in a drawer or in a museum. We like it to be sung, to be spread out. So this is a way to innovate these traditional cultures. I think it's a way to inherit our cultures and our identities. So in another way, it's also very good for the village it's good for the village to do their community governance. And also it's a good way to help villagers to build up this culture confidence. There's a village in the inner Mongolia.
So this village, having the village song really changed up the village atmosphere. When they had the village songs, the relationships between the neighbors became more harmonious. But you're just listening to me talking. But how or what are the standards for evaluating such village songs? What make them good village songs? And for me, the only standard is whether these villagers like the song. If we composed a song and the villagers don't like it, then I think the village song, it has no life, it has no value. So for me, the only standard for evaluating a village song is whether they like it and whether they like to share it with others. And next, I'd like to invite 7 guest speakers. And all these 7 speakers are long-term collaborators who I have worked with. And I'd like to give a small introduction to our 7 speakers. And our first speaker is Ms. Lu Li. She is from Inner Mongolia, and she's an important collaborator in our village song project. And thanks to her encouragement and continual pushing, in her town, we have been able to create 13 different songs for her town. And our second speaker is Mr. Pan Guojian, who is a villager from Pingnan village in Fujian province. He's also the president of Pingnan school. Mr. Pan had participated in the production of a village song in the Siping village. And our third speaker is Ms. SHAO Qiulu, who is a professor at Xinan University. A graduate student at Xinan University, who is dedicating his studies to village songs. And our fourth speaker is a research specialist at the Rural Reconstruction College at Xinan University. And our fifth speaker is Mr. Haihong, who is a vice professor at Xinan University as well. And our sixth speaker is Mr. Pan Jiaen, and the seventh speaker is Mr. Bu Wei, who is PhD advisor and professor at School of Law and Sociology, Chongqing Industrial and Commercial University, and he's also the coordinator of the Village Song Program. Each speaker will have 8 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Such a great honor to be invited by Heng to share the story of our village songs. I'm very proud to share that we already have 13 village songs, and there are a lot of stories. And I would like to briefly introduce myself. I'm a civil servant in grassroots level in my 5th year. And since 2018, I have been responsible for the cultural work in my town. And as a social worker, and I have combined a cultural work with a social workers methodology. And our cultural and art team has increased from 100 people to more than 200 people. And now especially we invited Heng's team to our village to help farmers and herdsmen to create their village, to create their own songs together. And since then, the team has grown. And I always remember Heng said that food nourishes the body and song nourishes the songs, the heart. And I would say the village song is like a dose of spiritual medicines for us. I want to share a few stories with you. And the first one is that the village song enables farmers to establish their cultural confidence and awake the culture of collective mutual help bondings. And there's always a saying that they would like to know. They said, "Oh, I don't know how to write, and how can I write a song?" But gradually and suddenly, they realize, "Wow, how come I can also write and make such good songs? Wow, I'm also capable of something." Yeah, because some of them is illiterate, so it's also difficult for them to learn how to sing. Like especially those who are in their 60s, in their 70s. Yeah. So it's actually quite hard for them to learn a song. But after they really master it, really learn it, they are really proud of themselves. So I would say it's a process of, wow, I can't, to, wow, I really can. It's really empowerment. So another story is that in the village, a woman from a village, after she went out and heard others say that, wow, your village song was not sung well. and she concerned about the collective honor. So she went back to the village and she organized a lot of rehearsals so that they could improve their performance. So another story, Miss Wu, she's 70 years old and an old party member. And she's very enthusiastic of this art and volunteer service. So she launched an activity of sending village songs to elders who are over 90 years old. So they have chats with elderlies and share the warmth and share the songs and yeah, even though they have lived there for many decades, but they they didn't quite have such heartfelt dialogue and conversations. So village songs really brings them together. And yeah, and you know that like many other songs, they have a lot of migrant workers. So a lot of them already kind of moved to the cities. And one of them, once she shared with me, I've never sung before. I prefer to drink more wines rather than if someone asked me to sing. But after this village song was written, she realized that, well, I can also sing in public. And she really liked the village song because, yeah, she felt like she has now more connections and more familiar with farmers. And she also has a stronger sense of responsibility to do something for her village and for the locals. So there's another village. Miss Wang, he works for a state-owned enterprise and he has left the village for more than 30 years. And he learned to sing the village song and recorded the short video and sent it to me. And he was so proud and very enthusiastic because he after he learned to sing the song, he was even more excited, and he even expressed his gratitude in the village. And in the same village, he's an entrepreneur who has left the village for 40 years. And last year, he returned to his village and would like to motivate his villagers to return home and do more work and service for the development of the village. And his family stories is very so he has two nieces who are in the 14 years old and also and one in his 6 years old. And he even taught his two nieces to learn the village songs, and he recorded and sent that to me. And I can really tell the marvelous stories of all the stories and of all the village songs. And I think there must be a professional research team in the future who can come and record all our stories. And I really want to welcome you all to the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region. And in my town, we are the first anti-Japanese base established in this province. Yeah, so we are a region which is very rich in this Mongolian culture. and the many singers and many dancers are very famous. So you're always welcome here, and I hope people, when they come, they could listen to our songs and to watch our dance. And as you know, that as we sing and we dance, our hearts are together, and let's strive for a better future and a better future for this rural reconstruction. Yeah, thank you. Could you also sing some village song for us?
唱一个我们达拉图如的村歌吧，它上面的标题是忽略的达楞图如。忽略是我们鄂尔多斯的方言，它
So I would like to share a part. That's a word 忽略 is in the local dialect, and the meaning of it is a solidarity. And this song could emphasize how different households would work hard to raise their children and hardworking and in solidarity. It's kind of a way to picture such culture.
羊羔羔吃奶，眼望着马，梁山人为儿女撑起一个家。蓝天下绿茵茵好牧场，一朵朵小野花像太阳。沙枣树杨柳湖畔收，黑头到白头我们一起走。远方的亲人常回家看看吧，袈裟葱挖苦菜，拉拉知心话。远方的游子常梦中思念呀，忽略的达拉图如永远是我的家。远方的亲人常回家看看吧，袈裟葱挖苦菜，拉拉知心话。远方的游子常梦中思念呀，忽略的达拉图鲁永远是我的家，忽略的达拉图鲁永远是我的家。谢谢，谢谢大家。
Thank you all.
And now let's welcome our second speaker. Hello everyone, my name is Guojian. I come from Fujian, Pingnan, number 4 middle school. And I'm the principal of the school. And at the same time, I'm also a villager of Qiulu village. I'm really happy to be here to share my experience and thoughts as part of this project. In July 2021, I joined Mr. Sun Heng's team and participated in the activity of writing a village song. And I owe my gratitude to Mr. Sun to help my hometown, help my village to create our own village song. And our focus is to produce songs that are easy for villagers to sing. And before this experience, I had never known that we could create a village song like this. And it had many heartfelt takeaways. Before we started producing the song together, Mr. Sun asked me a question. Guojian, so what kind of song do you like? And what kind of expectations do you have? And I said back to him, I hope that our village song's melody will be simple. It'll be easy to remember and easy to sing, and that it will be a catchy tune. That it'll be easy for the villagers to share and spread amongst themselves. And perhaps our Mr. Sun, our teacher, wherever he goes to, he would ask the same question. And in the next few days, we started walking around the village to get to know better our village's history and get to know people's stories. We participated in the workshop and began to gather the major events that happened in our history. And in our Siping village, both the old and new villages enjoyed participating in this workshop. After a few days of chatter and arguments and deep conversation, in fact, we did have some arguments, but we also reached compromises and we learned to appreciate each other's perspectives. And eventually, we reached a common ground. And admittedly, we were able to create a beautiful melody and a song whose lyrics were deep to our hearts. In fact, in our village, a lot of our local folk songs, their melodies are very simple to learn. Our villagers, they only need to listen to those tunes a few times and they can know how to sing them. And ones that get passed down most widely are also the ones that are the easiest to learn. For example, we have songs for picking teas. And for us, the process of producing a village song is a way to re-engage those members of our community who hadn't previously been so active. For example, we used to have a theater troupe, and the members of the troupe are mostly elderly people, and this group hadn't been active for many years, but our village song project completely reactivated this group, and now the elderly members of this former theater group are very eager to meet regularly and to sing songs from the past, to perform or to re-perform the tunes that used to be familiar to them and to us. And we observed that for the elderly who had been left behind in the village, by singing these village songs, it's diminished their feelings of loneliness effectively, and people have been happier. And here, because of singing village songs, we have seen a higher level of collective cohesiveness. And for those who had left the village for work reasons, now they often also come back to the village to engage in this process. And therefore, I believe that writing a village song, or village songs, should engage our villages. It should allow everyone to participate because the song belongs to everyone. Because the villagers are the most important beneficiaries of our songs. And although the literacy levels in our village are quite uneven, many of our villagers, in fact, can't read words. And therefore, songs that are too literate or too artistically sophisticated are not easy for our villagers to learn, or not the most suitable ones. And as Mr. Sun had said, such songs are no longer village songs. They're no longer the people's songs. So in the process of producing village songs, I realized that the way to evaluate whether a village song is good or not, besides whether the melody is easy to learn and for passing down, the other important factor is whether the village song can deeply infiltrate into the villagers' lives, into their souls. And as Mr. Sun had said, a village song, for it to be good and widely popular, it has to go into people's hearts. In fact, for me, among all the songs that Mr. Sun had produced, I had seen these elements, these following elements. First, a village song has to present features that are characteristic of that particular place. For example, in China, southwestern village is so different from a village in the north. A village song is like an anthem to a nation. So a village song has to point to the unique features of a village. A village song is a summary, is a nexus of a village's cultural inheritance, its accumulation, and it reflects the blood of a village. And that's why we believe a village song has to carry on that bloodline of the village. Third, a village song, it has to be able to communicate good ways of behavior for family, or for acting in a family. For me, in a village song, we should advocate those good customs and ways of acting for people. And the fourth factor is that a village song has to be able to convey the villagers' joy in the times of harvest and the joy that comes with work, with physical labor. And number 5, can a village song offers us a glimpse into the village's beautiful scenery and natural environment? And for us, for me, it is important that our lyrics can portray a beautiful picture of what our village looks like. And then so people who had left our village, when they hear our song, when they hear their own hometown song, it'll awaken that sense of nostalgia in them. And 6th, whether can we inject more meaning into our village song? For example, we attach deeper meanings to our song in the later stages of production of our village song. However, I believe the most important ingredient of our village song is that a village song should be able to convey our passion and love for our hometown. And that's the most important element. And to sum up, whether a village song is good or not, the melody should be easy to remember, easy to spread around. It should have its own personality. It should feature the daily life, the qualities of the local natural environment and human environment. It should integrate those local elements of those traditions that are particular to that place. Let those village songs carry those tastes of locality, taste of regional specialties. Let those songs sing our villagers' love for their hometown. Let them sing about their beautiful hopes for rural revitalization. And these are some of my takeaways during this process of learning to produce village songs. And last but not least, I extend my invitation to everyone. I welcome everyone will have a chance to come visit Siping village in Fujian province. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you. I am a facilitator of this very strong project. Such an honor to be able to share my experience with you. And I would say that every time after facilitating this production of very strong, it's kind of like an adventure and also like a harvest. At least why I say it's an adventure, because not until the last day, no one would know that how this village song would look like. So for me, it's a very good learning process, and also to learn from the village and also to learn in the village. And every time before the collective production, we visited, we will visit the villagers, and we do research on the village. And I can hear sometimes feedback from the villagers. How come I can write songs? Okay, you can write it and we sing. It's fine. But I would like them to know that what is collective production or collective song production. Yeah, it's not. The most important thing is their participation. So how to do this collectively together, and why we have to do this? This is always a process that we share. Yeah. So on one hand, writing songs in a group for the collective is to satisfy the need for the majorities, kind of with some compromise. But nowadays, the culture is more like has more service, tailor-made for individuals. So there's this difference here. So at the beginning, they always said you can come and make and write. So I can tell that there's this separation between facilitators and villagers. It is you and me. They see us as an outsider. And also they relied on us to do a lot of things. There's this kind of like ideology behind. So in this process, we also heard a lot like, well, I have lived for decades and I've never realized that I can also write a song. So every time during the workshop, we always emphasize that you are the main creator. And like Mr. Shen already mentioned, on the first day, we will collect stories, the personal stories, stories of the village, and so there are a lot of these words and sentences that came out from everyone. So it is a process of collective writing or collective production. So meanwhile, in this process, we are making our own identity as facilitators. So gradually, the villagers, they could understand what's the role of facilitators, and how these facilitators and villagers could form like a coalition to work together. So it's really in this process of participation, we re-emphasize or we strengthen this awareness that we are together writing or producing a village song. So it's also a way in this process, by participation, we are valuing our own value. We are saying yes to, I can also do this, instead of doubting or hesitating. Yeah, so from how we can do it to wow, we can really do it, it's a process from it's a process, we can tell that it's a transition to accept new things, the transition of some attitudes, our knowledge, and you can also tell there's a learning curve here, and we can see the inclusiveness, acceptance, and actions that emerge in this process. So as the facilitator myself, I can really feel that I have to learn a lot from the village. For example, the collective spirit and also this reciprocity among villagers, and also they know the nature really well, and also the spirit as pioneers. And finally, they can really tell a very deep life wisdoms or stories using very simple language, like when they share like this filial piety, or how couples should accompany each other better, or on solidarity, or on the importance of families. So in this collective writing process, sometimes it's hard because we have to combine a lot of lyric, and sometimes it seems easy but really consuming. But really in this process that reminds me how hardworking they are, how persistent they are, how sincere they are. I really need to learn from them. So for facilitator as me, I'm very honored to be able to re-understand countryside and learn from countryside in this process. I'm very honored to be able to be in part of this work, and and it's such a great opportunity for me to learn more about China from the perspective of countryside. And I hope that there are more facilitators to join in, and there are more village to have their village songs.
各位老师，大家晚上好。我是
Dear fellow panelists, good evening. My name is Lingyan. I'm a researcher of Rural Revitalization Strategy Research Institute of Southwest University. And it is my honor to be able to be on this panel. Thank you to the forum organizers. We know that music is a product of an era. And we've done research on the evolution of music, of Chinese music, from the revolutionary times and anti-war times to what we have today. We've seen the changes. And the Village Song Project is a special.
您讲慢一点。
我那个文稿已经发给他们了。
是您说话的速度慢一点。
行，好。然后讨论川歌呀，就被赋予了一种更为厚重的这种历史感和责任。
For us, having this participatory method of engaging the villagers gives us new meaning. And I'm going to talk about my observations. From 2002, in the #1 central document, where it started talking about the idea of village song. Until now, my understanding of village songs has evolved over time. For example, for me, even the very simple lyrics, behind these very simple lyrics, they are conveying many lively stories and personalities of the village that is coming from. And it's also showing us the beautiful hopes and visions from the villagers about their own place of belonging. In the books, we talk about China's history, but in reality, we have to go into these processes of participation to see the real and to see the real features of what is alive in our villages. And looking at our own history as well, during our revolutionary times back in the 40s and 50s, we also went through a similar process where we went to the villages. The musicians at the time went to the villages and talked to the villagers, invited them to share their feelings, and we incorporated their feelings and messages into the songs. And that's what we are doing today, similar. And it's only by doing so, it's only in allowing these villagers to participate in the process, can we better help these traditions to be passed down. And secondly, I'm going to talk about why is it that back in the revolutionary times, why is that those revolutionary songs that carry those themes can be passed down so effectively. And the key I want to point out here is exactly this participatory method. This way of allowing villagers to participate not only allowed the villagers to have an opportunity to be treated equally as the creator of this music, but also it pointed us to a new way of talking about our history. Actually, for example, there was such a village in which the villagers had to be, more than 1,000 villages had to be moved away from their home in order for the tombs to be moved away and to be rebuilt elsewhere. And those villagers' feelings and reaction to such incidents were reflected in the song that they later produced together. And in the song, it also allowed the villagers and those who had to move away, unfortunately, to have a space for dialogue. And after all, the villages are the villagers' villages. And it's very important that we engage them in this process because it empowers them to be able to create themselves. It empowers the village to create itself. Thirdly, we know that creation can't be treated apart from traditions. Without traditions, then any of our creations will lose its meaning and lose its liveliness. We know that in Mr. Sun's project and in the efforts that in the collaborations we've done with him, whether it's live broadcasting or talking about our villages, traditions and customs and traditional folk songs, we emphasize that we go dig into those local features of that particular village so that we can convey the uniqueness of that village. And it is in this collective creative process that we realize that it is important to involve these particularities of these villages, involve its particular history and traditions when we are trying to protect a place's cultural heritage. And it's only in engaging this history can we achieve a harmony then with what a village or where it's heading in the future. And therefore, may I say that producing a village song it offers a new way for us to tackle the puzzle of rural revitalization. And being a researcher in this topic has given me great honor and sense of responsibility and inspiration. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Haihong. I'm a facilitator in the Village Song Project. I'm also an educator at a higher ed institution. It is my honor tonight to share with you my observations and experiences in creating a village song. And so far, I've participated in the production process of 5 village songs in Chongqing province. As our last speaker has mentioned, for me, every time we try to produce a village song, it's like a new adventure. And every village song can convey that village's special and unique spirit. And tonight, I'm going to talk about village song production as a method and process. And I'm going to particularly focus on its function and significance of being such a collective creative method. First of all, the Village Song Project has created an opportunity for cross-sector collaboration. In the case of Chongqing province and the application of Village Song Project in Chongqing province, this project has allowed the local government and the village government and the local travel agencies and higher education institutions and college students and more different stakeholders. It has allowed them to come together and collaborate. And it's this, in comparison to the top-down singular way of creating culture and defining culture, a Village Song Project is a different model in which it involves different stakeholders and participators. And secondly, the Village Song Project has also created a space, an equal space for dialogues to happen. It allows participators to be seen and heard. For example, the research that has to be conducted in the beginning stages of a production of a village song, in some way, it's similar to a field trip that we would conduct, field study we would conduct in many sociological disciplines. And in these processes, most villages would treat facilitators and these researchers as outsiders, and they would be very curious. But in these workshops, our villagers and the insiders, as we call them, the village cadre members, they would all take time to participate in these workshops, and they would put down what they might have at the moment and join this dialogue. And they would often, in my experiences, call each other brothers and sisters and classmates. And we make sure that they sit in the circle, and after ice-breaking games, that they have the space to be heard by each other. And we've noticed that those who usually, or who had in the past gotten excluded, those people who stand on the edges in a village, during this process has also found their own place. For example, we had 2 disabled participants who also were able to join us in this process. They felt empowered and comfortable being part of this process. And on the other side, these workshops have also offered a therapeutic space. For example, during these production workshops, some villagers might bring themselves to tears and start telling us stories that they had never told anyone else. And thirdly, I think these workshops are a catalyst, and they are enabling the villages to rediscover their own villages. And our teacher, Mr. Sun Heng, in his workshops, he discovered on the first day and the second day, respectively, sections where villagers get to tell their own life stories, as well as collectively as a village to tell their stories. In the individual life story section, different villagers, especially the elderly members, a lot of them had been in the army in the past, and they had in the past were involved in building bridges and the roads and the reservoirs. In this retelling of their past, of their youth, they were able to relive their past life, their past stages in their life. And it's also in this process that the participants were able to get to know each other better. Besides that, our facilitators are coming from outside the village. And this outsider perspective, sometimes they can offer new things that our villagers have in the past neglected. And the facilitators often would point out things that would surprise the villagers, and they would be surprised to know that we have these traditions and these customs and these little details that are in fact so valuable that they didn't know, that they didn't realize before. And in our village, the villagers often talk about the difficulties, the difficult realities of their lives in the past. Mountains are tall, but the soil is arid. But now, through these songs, the villagers start to see their villages as a beautiful home. And the saying that they have tall mountains but thin soil have changed into different saying, which is tall mountains and rich soil. And the fourth element I'm going to talk about is similar to what the previous panels had talked about, is the main acting body in this process of producing a village song. And what I want to emphasize is that whether it's at the stage of ruminating on the lyrics or nominating on the name of the song, these are all examples of discussing or looking at who is the main acting body. And I want to here offer another example. Here in our Wenfeng village in Wulong district, Hoping County, we had an incident where our villagers were talking about what kind of tune, what style of tune should we use for our song. And we wanted to ask the villager, what tune would you like to use the most that you think would help to express your feelings the most accurately? At the time, we did have many versions of, and quite perfect versions of lyrics for the villagers to choose. But the villagers, after their discussion, they decided to adopt the one that's most intimate to what they feel as their life, as part of their life, is the daily farm work that they have to produce, that they have to participate in. And for us, the facilitators, in this process, we also offer some lyrics for the villagers to consider. But whether they adopt them or not, we give the freedom to the villagers. We give them the freedom to choose the ones that they feel comfortable using. For example, we had a few sentences in our lyrics such as, my village is your home. And there were examples of lyrics that sound very catchy and easy to remember, even that rhyme, but the villagers didn't choose them. And for me personally, the process of creating a village song is a way that allows me to walk closer into the villagers' life, walk closer into the village's life. And I want to thank the Village Song Project to give me this opportunity to become a participant. And thank you, everybody.
Yeah, because of the limited time we have, I'm gonna speak slower for the translators. So I think that the previous few speakers have already shared a lot of their experience, and I would like to propose a few questions for us to discuss. So once there's a scholar raised a question that whether the grassroots people could could speak. And we can tell that, of course, people from the grassroots could talk, they could share. They not only that, they can also write songs and they can also create things. So it's not about whether they're able to speak, it's about whether we are willing to listen, whether we can give them the platform, the opportunity to do all those. So as we have heard that from our previous speakers about how we can organize this platform, how we can empower them, empower the people from the grassroots, whether we can change our ideas, whether we can change our perception. So change is always possible. So secondly, village songs, it is one example of rural reconstruction movement. It is just one example, and it reflects the cultural aspects. And people would criticize that culture, it always comes very slow instead of economics developments, but all these cultural activities is a tool for us. It's also a way to connect people. It's not just the hierarchical relationships, but also is their participants. So it's really a way, a tool, an approach. So culture is a very good tool. And one of the reconstruction is about cultural reconstruction. Why we need to develop our economics? Because in such ways we can also develop and cultivate our culture. So culture is also a way. I'm in the process of writing an article. It's on this grassroots way. It's a way that it's a way to combine this bottom up and top down approach. So it's about this bottom up governance. In the process of discussing, dialoguing, we can reach the consensus from bottom up. So there's a way of differences. All is in the meantime, it's always it's also a process of consolidation. Yeah, as Sun Heng already mentioned, that when we do the workshop, we will group men and women in different groups. Because if we mix them together, the men's always speak louder, right? So we need to see the differences. We can see the differences and some of the hidden power in such group. So in such way, when we are aware of the differences, we can pay attention to the minority, to the people who have less power. But on the same time, we also need to consolidate. Also need to, and we heard that we combine the elderly and old villagers and new villagers. We group them together, and also this cooperation or consolidation of the future and the past. So the fourth point, there's also a way of a mutual or changes in two directions. One is for scholars to understand our own problems. And meanwhile, as scholar, as intellectuals, we also have to learn how we can connect with people. And in such a way, how to build our own identity as intellectual, and also how to build identities of the local people. So, and in this process, we also emphasize a lot of this a local identity. So village song is very small, but from this small, like a window, small window, we can see a bigger picture. And also we can reflect on our connection as intellectuals, our relationship, our connection with the people on the ground. So these are my comments.
各位老师和
Hello everyone. Good evening. I also want to share my opinions. I have participated in production of 7 village songs, and I want to share my views. So I think the importance and this powerful of village song is about the collective participation. And in this process, this is a way to build the collective identity of the village. They can discover the value of their own village, even though some villages are going downward. But still, in this process, this collective, this commons are emerging in this process. This is the most valuable of village songs. But I want to mention 3 challenges. And firstly, after we discover the value of the village, we can tell from the village or from the villagers, and we can tell that they have been they met the challenge of the mainstream, from the mainstream society, the mainstream cultures, and also they hit with the traditional ideologies. There's some like women are in a lower place than men. And secondly, the village songs, it has to be embedded into the local development policy. And thirdly, is the power dynamic between facilitators and villagers. Whether villagers are literal or whether they are men or women. So there are a lot of power dynamic in this process. As we can find in some provinces, there are women that they are illiterate, so they have no income, no salaries. Yeah, so sometimes in this process, a man, they have the opportunity to go to schools, and when this workshop is based on words, based on language, there are a lot of women that they face difficulties into participation. And also, I also discovered that people who sings well, or people who are not able to sing, there are also this power dynamic here. So as facilitators, we must pay attention to all this power dynamic. Otherwise, we cannot do the empowerment properly, and we won't have this identity, this collective identity. Rather, it would just be a copy of the traditional way of. For those who have power, they have to say, they can say, they have a saying in these songs, and those who are not, they don't have this power. So I really agree with what Li said, that village song is a social work method. And we discovered that the young people, they go back to shoot videos or to start local dramas, so opera. So there are different ways in art, in dance, in all kinds of ways to revitalize the culture. And also this this culture if it could be grounded, it could be rooted in locals. It would be the most powerful one. And I also know a lot of cases, and they introduced this drama play into the village, and this kind of art form could retell the story of what are really happening in society. It might be like domestic violence and so on. So it's all about organization. For example, in Inner Mongolia, where this minority group so in such areas with minority group, what are the most grounded and rooted form? So it's good to find identified ways to that could respond to the local culture and the local history. So let's find the way that is the most suitable for each village. Could we form this collective among different locals?
Thank you all. Thank you to all the panelists, and thank you for the dialogue. Now we have a few questions to invite the panelists to respond to. First question, I would like to know whether the interpretation of rural China by Fei Xiaotong, a social anthropologist from decades ago, whether his ideas such as the concept of the differential mode of association, whether this concept is still applicable to observing the current problems in rural China. And in regards to this question, for us, during our research field trips, we've noticed that this concept is still applicable. For example, in our group, in our research group, and in our village, we've noticed the way the villagers define their relationships and the proximity of their relationships. For example, we noticed there were these two women in this village, that between them, these two women were our relatives, but we've also noticed a friendship between them. Dr. Pan Jian would like to offer a few words on this question. Well, this concept was first raised by Fei Xiaotong decades ago, but however, in recent years, many sociologists and anthropologists have talked about the idea that today's China, the level of urbanization in China has made today's China completely different from the China then in Fei Xiaotong's time. But today, rural China is still the base color of Chinese society and Chinese culture. Well, another concept that Dr. Fei also raised in his book, Rural China, is the idea of a society based on familiar relationships. And we have to notice that these relationships and these ways that social structure is defined in rural China has also evolved significantly. And in the case of Village Song Project, as Mr. Sun had mentioned earlier, not all the village songs that have been passed down from the past, for example, some of them might portray women in not such a kind way. So we have to view this process. We have to view these village songs and these creative works from the past with an objective lens and take out the ones that no longer apply to us today. Thank you very much, Dr. Pan. And our second question from the audience is that Dr. Pu Wei just now mentioned that there's this alienation of conventional values. And I agree that we must face into the struggles and arguments that that surface in these villages. And I would like to ask whether I want to ask Dr. Bu Wei, but do you think that the village song project can change the trend that people in society today are so materialistic? Well, I can't say absolutely. I can't give you an absolute answer. But for me, what I can say is that in our process of producing village songs, the entire process values the collective effort. And we're always emphasizing that the village as a whole is the main subject. And it is my observation that this co-creative process can allow the villages, it can awaken the villages from being an individual into thinking as a part of a community. So that's what I can offer to this question. Well, for Dr. Pan, I think it's absolutely impossible for this village song project or for a single song to reverse or even interject a trend, a societal trend. And I think it's impossible because for me, perhaps it's true that what we can change individually is through our individual behavior. We can change our understanding towards a culture, a village, a tradition. But for me, what we're doing in rural revitalization is not a simple task. And what has led to our individualistic, what has led to the individualism that's prevalent in society is the result of many different factors combined. Well, I think the tensions and difficulties that we are facing today are also a result of these interacting forces. And so we must treat them with contentment at heart, with peacefulness at heart. And let's see whether Mr. Sun has anything to say to this question. Well, are we emphasizing on the individual or on the collective in the village song? Well, to this question, we have to look at the particular cases. For example, when we were in Lingyan village in Chongqing province, we found a tune, an old tune that used to be the melody that people sang during the old commune times, where a group of people, while they were working together in the field, they would play the drums together. And this melody, this tune, came out of that particular time. It was suitable for the circumstances then. But we found a person who still remembered the tune, but he hadn't sang the tune for many, many years. And we asked him why, and he said, well, because we no longer have the same type of work after we've gone through reform and opening. So for him, that particular collective way of performance, of performing music, is no longer needed in today's time. But today, in today's rural China, are there things that still need a collective to perform together? Well, yes. Let's take farming as an example. Who is going to grow vegetables in the future after we lose the current elderly population? Well, perhaps we will need farming where we used to need farmer cooperatives. Our needs for them might have shifted today. We might still need them, or we might not in some cases. And it also depends on regions. For example, in Inner Mongolia, it is a place where we have very small population, but with vast lands. And in Inner Mongolia, we meet people who naturally love music because they naturally need it. They need the space of music and art to bring them together. So for me, the art form of village song, it can't be separated from people's lives. It can't be separated from the mode of production. It has to serve people's lives. But if you just talk about the genre of village song, it's too wide, too general of a category. And whether that can change our mode of production and how we relate to each other, that's a great but big question. Oh, thank you.
谢谢。好，因
Thank
为
you.
时间问题，我们后续
Because of our time limits, if our participants and audience members have more questions, you're welcome to raise them separately after our conference. And our sharing and panel here has come to an end. Thank you to Mr. Heng, Sun Heng, and thank you to our 7 guest speakers. Tonight, we've seen how a village song comes into being and stories from different villages about the songs. And we also heard the beautiful melodies from these songs. Let me borrow a quote from Mr. Sun. The Village Song Project is not an act of giving, but rather it is an act of participation. It's not losing one's culture, but one of actively sharing our culture with the world. Co-creating the village song, the villagers will have a collective memory. They will take pride in their identity as a whole. And let us anticipate with Mr. Sun, and let's hope that in the future, in the next 3 years, we will have 100 villages who will sing their own tunes.